Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Zach Ingofinch, and I am here today joined by me, myself, and I. This is the second attempt at this podcast. I recorded an entire version of it. I was happy I was publishing. And as I went back, I listened to the audio. And for whatever reason, pretty sure it's because the door behind me, if you're watching on the camera, was open. There was just an echo. So occasionally you'd hear me talking. And then in between all that, you'd hear, which to be fair, sometimes when I'm on a run, you pick out the most important words. I feel like this is often how my lovely wife listens to me. And to be honest, I don't blame her. I do go on one. Alas, you probably would like to know what we're talking about today. And what I'm talking about today is Ralf Fastenhuill, as you've probably seen from the title by this point. So, why do I want to talk about Ralf Fastenhuill? Well, if you've been keeping up with the news, and let's face it, we do like to keep an eye on all ex-Saints players, ex-Saints managers. I think the tagline that I saw upon people suggesting that we maybe bring him back was my word, nostalgia FC, which, to be honest, is quite true. So are we talking about Ralf Fastenhuill? Well, yesterday, when you're listening to this, today, as I record, in the morning, it has been confirmed by Wolfsburg that he has been fired. He has been sacked, unfortunately, after a 4-0 loss to Borussia Dortmund. And it's probably a bit harsh on the guy because they're 12th. They're not in, dire straits. When he took them over, they were in the relegation spots last year. That was their 6th defeat in 7 games. So clearly Wolfsburg have made a decision. I think that they probably consider themselves to be a bit more of a prestigious club for where they've landed. And he's been sacked with 2 games remaining. So, yeah, I just thought, with the way things are, and the fact that I have seen almost an outcry of sort of almost battles on social media between those that are like, well, surely it's worth a punt, and those that are like, surely, we don't want to keep living in the past. And I think that's a problem with our club is we do live in the past. We do like to talk about potentially bringing back Danny Ings every single transfer window. We brought back Theo Walcott. Lallana is currently in the dugout, despite being brought in as a player. We do. We love it. I would take Romeu back in a heartbeat. I would take Victor Wanyama back in a heartbeat. I would take Yoshida back in a heartbeat. I am part of this problem. And when we say nostalgia, it's not even for like 10 years ago. Like there was talk when we went down to the championship, remember, of us taking a 40-year-old Jose Font. To be honest, the way things have gone this season, maybe it would have been a good, shrewd piece of business. Like, so, but it is a, I wouldn't say unique phenomenon with our club, but we do have a big affinity for our ex-players. And I guess when you say once a saint, always a saint, there truly is something beyond that. But it is baffling that we talk so much about wanting to get rid of specific players and how we need a clear out, and then a transfer window rolls around and we're trying to bring everyone back. And admittedly, a lot of them are from this sort of golden period in the last 10 years where we were fighting for European football, and then we had European football, and I can understand the nostalgia. But Ralf, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, cuts a divisive figure at the club because he is, it turns out, out of all of the recent Premier League managers we've had, so, clearly the most successful. That's because he managed a long time in the Premier League with the club in comparison to all of the other managers whose stints were significantly shorter. But he also presided over 2 9-0 losses, which I think that a lot of people just sometimes forget, which is baffling because the media certainly don't. Every time we play Leicester, every time we play United, there is a big reminder that we lost both of those clubs 9-0. So yeah, I can understand the outcry and sort of the support, and again, there was an article back from sort of April on Saints Marching. Sorry, February, I think it was in Saints Marching. I'll link all of sources in the description, as always. Talking about sort of we've missed Ralf Fastenhuill a little bit, and again, like they're also part of that sort of, I wouldn't call it nostalgia bait. That's kind of wrong, but like it almost is, right? Like we always, we'd always Saints fans' ears will prick up if there's like a mention of James Ward-Prowse or again Danny Ings for some reason every single transfer window without fail, mainly because we haven't really replaced him, and that's part of the problem. And I think realistically, the way that things have gone, have we replaced Hasenhüttl? And by that I mean a Premier League quality manager who's been able to sustain our position in the league? And the answer to that question is no. So naturally, we're going to want to gravitate towards that, and maybe he's a potential replacement manager. Uh, I think my feelings on how my personal opinion will become clear throughout the rest of this, I guess, monologue slash conversation with myself and wonderful listeners. So we'll get into the meats and the bones and some of the main questions I have after a word from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique.
So we are back, and I guess one of the questions that like I kind of have is why would he want to come back? So if you look at the sort of teams that Ralf Hasenhüttl has been in charge of, it's been Leipzig. It's been recent years, us for a very, very long period of time, and then a Bundesliga club is in Wolfsburg. What would the motivator be to come back to take on a team in the second tier of English football? And I say that with love. It's a very lucrative league. It's probably the most lucrative second league of football, but it is still a second league of football. And there's a couple of managers. Rowe is a particular that've got their start in sort of management there, but that's not, well, as in full-time manager, but like that's not probably the aspirations of where he'd like to be. And it's a bigger project than I think we let on. We are starting to see the consequences. I know that there is probably some people really hitting the panic button. I talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but like there is a genuine fear in the club that we could end up like Luton again. And I think Greg allayed a lot of those fears through explaining that financially we're in a significantly better position, but I can understand why we feel like that. So if we're genuinely thinking, oh my goodness, we could end up in League One, what is the motivation? Like I have had people via TikTok saying what would be the reason for Will Still to come from the sort of French league to come and manage Southampton. And like this is a man who has previously interviewed for a championship job and didn't get it. So yeah, like for me, it's one of those things that what would be the motivation on him coming back, And also, I guess the question of why do we want him back? And I think that there's two or three arguments for that. So let's address them, shall we? A sense of comfort in the familiarity. He knows the club. Again, it's a different Southampton to the Southampton that he left. It's a big thing that I point out when people talk about how Roll knows the club and he's been at Southampton. I was like, yeah, that's true, but he was here for like 8 months, if that. And some of that remember rightly, wasn't even in the actual season. It was like pre-season. So Hasenhüttl was here for a long time, but he was fired by the current owners of Southampton, right? I just I just struggle to see what he would see in wanting to come back here. Like, is it, yeah, he has a connection to the supporters a little bit, but if you know that you're going to get 50-50 Frosty support, and I know that we would probably welcome him back with open arms, and there's a lot of people that are in the position and it can't get any worse. But I would bear in mind of how St Mary's has been over the last couple of months, and to be clear, rightfully so. What is the motivation to want to take a fan base on that at the moment are not in the best of minds, not in, why would you want to deal with that when you don't have to? Are the wages going to be the same of what he's had before? And realistically, if he could get a job elsewhere in the Bundesliga or in the even in the Premier League, what would really want to make him come back to us, other than us thinking he really liked it here? And I just don't think that's enough motivation. And I also think that he actually performed the best as a manager without crowd pressure. And he said that himself during, obviously, when he had his best in, where he won manager of the month during coronavirus, if you remember rightly. And he said, as a coach, I can coach better in games behind closed doors. That definitely helps us. The players are much more reasonable and they're not pushed forwards from the stands. And would have to deal, at least for the beginning, of probably, unless he was able to kickstart it immediately, some hostility from the stands, because it's hard being a Saints fan at the moment. And I don't blame anyone that goes to games and gets mad. And I think that, everyone says we should get behind the lads, this and the other. Yeah, but they have to give us something to fight for. And I just don't see that being an attractive job for someone that put so much into this club previously to then just kind of get laid off halfway through a season. And there's quite a few other reasons as well, right? Like, I don't think that Sports Republic would go through all of the pain that they've gone through to then say the best profile for a manager is the manager that they fired at the beginning. But maybe they would. Who knows? I think a lot of the appointment's going to be down to who Spurs wants to bring in, right? And you look at the type of profile that we're being linked with, Eric Ramsey, Will Still, Danny Roll. These are young, hungry, ambitious managers, but they are not managers who have played in the Premier League previously. And I don't know if that's the right answer. I know that we've also been linked with your Frank Lampards and your Steven Gerrards, and potentially some sort of, if you listen to Greg, Sam Allardyce, I know there's even been some talk about Sean Dyche. But looking at the sort of immediate people that we've been linked with under Spurs, it's very much sort of a young and up and coming manager. And I don't know if, that if Hasenhüttl fits that, if the solution to the problem is to go backwards. I don't know if it would be a good thing if they could swallow their pride enough to go back and get him. But from like a personal perspective, it would be, I would be very, very surprised. I would back him because I will back any manager initially until they give me a reason not to. Ivan Juric gave me a lot more reasons than Russell Martin, put it that way. And, Ruska and Lallana aren't exactly having a great time with it. But yeah, I would be very surprised if that's the case. But one of the other things I wanted to point out is, and one of the reasons that we are so, I guess, locked into this idea, is if you look at our Premier League record in recent times, as a manager of Southampton, he managed 47 wins in the Premier League. There's the famous win against Liverpool where he dropped to his knees and he cried. And again, I think that's more to do with his relationship with Jurgen Klopp and his desire to sort of get one over on somebody. He was referred to as the Klopp of the Alps, right? So that was more of a personal thing. But like, out of all of the managers we've had in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, have had the most wins in the Premier League. So if you look at Sellers, he managed 2 wins. If I remember rightly, one was against Chelsea, which was surprising, and there was another against Leicester, which somehow we won that game. That, if you remember rightly, that was the game I've talked about previously where they missed every chance under the sun. Martin has managed his solitary win against Everton. Juric managed his win against Ipswich, and even Jones, when he was in charge, managed to win. But that's it. That's 47-5. So there is an argument to be had that he was a manager that knows the club, who has won in the Premier League. That is better than most of our other candidates in recent memory. But again, is that the aim is the aim to get back to that kind of, we just trying to go back to where we are before? Because it's not going to be the same. It's a different club at this point. The players are different. It's not going to be the same behind the scenes. It's not going to be the same level of recruitment. He worked on a shoestring budget with a good scouting team. So I just don't think it's going to be what people who would love to have him back think it's going to be, right? The same with Roll. It's not going to be when he was assistant manager to Hasenhüttl. It's a completely clean slate, and a couple of years have passed, so who knows? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about his record at Wolfsburg. So if we are to pretend that Hasenhüttl would come in as an almost new manager, then I'll give you I guess, the unbiased opinion that I have. Because my current bias is that I see it as a mad appointment. Because why would you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expect things to change? And combined with the factors of, I don't think that we can afford to get him here, and I don't really think that he would want to come back for the Championship when he's proven that he can manage in the Premier League and the Bundesliga. But we'll hear about that after a word from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recordings on your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast. It sounds great and it's delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. We are back. So, when we left off, I kind of gave my opinion on the fact that I would be extremely surprised by the appointment. I don't think it's realistic, and I just don't think it's what the club would need. I think that most people, most of at least the behind the scenes who basically haven't been great, I think they would see it as a going backwards, unless of course the profile that Spurs spits out that we need is what we had before. But looking at Hasenhüttl post Southampton, so bear in mind he took a bit of a break after leaving us, and he was linked with further jobs. I think there was some strong links at the time. I say strong links. One of the few links I could find when I was having a look around him in his interim time when he was taking his time out. He was linked to the Rangers job, which is ironic because so is Russell Martin nowadays. I did what I usually do when I do a manager's profile, so I started going through all of the statistics, and I went through the transfer market website and had a look at all the jobs. I'm not going back for his entire early career. Again, he was manager for here for so long. 1,432 days he was in charge of Southampton. But Wolfsburg was a lot shorter than that. He was in charge for 413 days. So he took charge of them in March 2024, and they were in a precarious position in the relegation zone. And that is not what they wanted to be. And he managed to pull them out of that situation, and they were safe by the April. And obviously that meant that, he was going into this season with a bit sort of more of a, with a lot of goodwill, managed to save his club from relegation. And I had a look at the statistics over the time that he was in charge. And, he had 44 matches total. He managed an average of 1.36 points per game, which was slightly more than his time with us, which was 1.26. However, as pointed out, the longer period of time when he was with us. And this is also the shortest stint in his managerial career. So he has an average of 2 years at a club. This was sort of not even really a full year. And if you look at the kind of games on paper that he managed to win 17, drew 9, and lost 18. And if you compare that to sort of Will Steele and Danny Roll, it's actually quite similar. If you're looking at it in an objective sort of way, take out the fact that you've been at Southampton. if this was an unknown manager, an unknown quantity that was being brought in to potentially come and manage Southampton, probably first time, similar to the first time round, right? He's referred to as the quantity out. He's had stints at Leipzig and now Wolfsburg. He probably wouldn't be that upset. And that again, if I drop all of what I said in the first half, because that is a very biased opinion from a man that knows who he is and looked at the objective facts of this is what his current record is, I wouldn't be upset by that. You sort of look at how he's been over the last season as well. So one of the things I jumped onto is I had a look at the r slash Wolfsburg or the Wolfsburg subreddit. So on top of the fact that the Saints subreddit has had a interesting debate, which again seems very 50-50 on whether or not we're taking back. So the Wolfsburg, and one of the comments that I noticed was Hasenhüttl has made odd choices during his time here. He seemed to lack a clear direction of what kind of style he wanted to play, and now he's completely lost the team. What other choice is there to make? That is true. Once you lose the team, you lose the dressing room. I think it's very difficult to recover. But also, some of the fans on there seem to think that this is quite harsh, finishing 12th. And it was more that the club itself is going through a bit of a transitionary period. They don't really know what they're doing. There is sort of a desire for them to be in European, spots, but the season before they were kind of down below. And some people see it as quite a sort of harsh letting go, which I can't say that I know enough about the Bundesliga and know enough about Wolfsburg know how much truth there is to that. But I do take a lot of, you take into the opinions of people that go and watch this day in, day out. And I'll refer back to when we did our episode of Zurich, when Zurich got fired. And there was a Roma fan that basically spoke about his entire time when he was in charge at Roma. And it was pretty much almost a carbon copy paste of what Zurich's time in Southampton was like, where refused to budge, played players out of position, upset some of the key players in previous positions, all for the kind of sake of, I guess, style and philosophy. The idea that there isn't a distinctive style is potentially the fact he's trying to find out what works. And to be honest, we keep calling out for adaptability. So maybe it would be the worst thing in the world to have sort of this Austrian guy who's worked quite a lot in the Bundesliga, who is known to be is a bit adaptable. Maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing. But you need to remember there is the history there. There is the fact that we're going down to the second. It isn't as much of an attractive prospect as I think people like to think it is. It's going to be difficult for anyone to come in. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be almost rebuilding the entire squad. We don't know who's going to be here. Yeah, he's worked with some of the players, but I reckon everyone that he's worked with will probably potentially be gone by next season. Realistically, what you're looking at, Stephen, probably where I'm at. I think, if you have Bedrex got £6 million release clause, who else is staying? There is some exciting prospects to come. Very exciting things. If we don't manage to keep hold of Fernandez or Dibbling, we've got Shea Charles to return to us. He, would an absolute solid service at Sheffield Wednesday. You've got Ronnie Edwards to come back from QPR. Did a fantastic job at QPR. Nothing but good things from their fans and their staff. So there are areas to base it around, but it's going to be a hard job, and it's going to be difficult. And I don't know whether or not he would want to come back and take that challenge up. And I think that there's a reason that we are looking at these sort of young, hungry managers that when a project that specifically are understanding that we're going to need results. What results? There's going to be an expectation that we're at least fighting to return to the Premier League next season. I think personally, I know that there's again this worry, but there's a lot of money going to go in. We are going to be financially secure. We are probably going to get a lot of money back over the summer, especially with all of the players we've got. So I guess where I land on it is that I didn't know who Ralf Fastenhuill was, and I saw him linked with us. Probably be very happy. I do know who Ralf Hasenhüttl is. I've seen that he's linked with us. I very much doubt he's going to come back. Do I think that where do I put him on the candidates I've covered so far? Will Still, Danny Roll. probably behind both of them, if I'm totally honest. Because again, I don't know if he is what is needed right now. But I could be wrong. As me and Greg and Oscar point out regularly, we are humble armchair analysts who will back anybody that comes to the club and gives passion. And he would come back and do that. But again, it's more that just the realist in me does not see Sports Republic going, let's go back and hire the guy that we fired 3-4 managers ago. Hey, as I've also pointed out, stranger things have happened. This is football. So yeah, a bit of a different one today. There'll probably still be a manager profile tomorrow. I don't really know who. Going to have a look at the odds, see who's the next. Who's up there. Let's remember everybody that as much as we all seem to think that it's going to be Danny Roll, there has been interest in him from Leicester as well as Leipzig. I don't know if Leipzig have filled their role yet, but there is definitely interest from places other than just us, and we can't just assume we can't just assume we're a lock on for anybody that we go after. So it's a bit of a strange one, but I will get back to you with another one. Maybe Eric Ramsey. He's probably high up there on my list, but I'll have a check of the odds. Maybe we get Sean Dyche profile. So yeah, a bit of a strange one today, a bit of a different one. Thank you all very much for joining me. It's obviously on my lonesome, and as I said, second time through. Technical issues will ruin the day sometimes, but we march on and all that lot. I'd like to think that the amount of times that I will go to the effort of trying to re-record and make sure we get daily episodes out shows a lot more fight than our players currently, and I would feel bad bugging them off like that usually, but I'm still mad about the Leicester game, so maybe not. If you fancy checking us out on social media, we're all over it. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. All that fun stuff. So give us a like, give us a follow, give us a review. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're still here, we will definitely, hopefully, have at least 2 of us back tomorrow. Until then, I will catch you then. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.